I thought you were going to come down that aisle, yeah, and completely blow me away.
They've been casting abusive men year after year.
We are gathered here today to talk about Married at First Sight, otherwise known as MAFS, a reality TV show that's taken the world by storm and is rivaling the likes of Love Island and Love is Blind with its absolute goldmine of scandals and drama.
When he smiled, I first wanted to punch him in the jaw.
In this video, I want to talk about some of the issues with Married at First Sight, the relationship experts, and the couples who come with quirks like hairy butt cracks.
I come with quirks. I've got a hairy butt crack.
I've got comments before that are like, why do you have to wear like these outfits in your videos? Sorry, I was born to serve face on the internet. Before we get into this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram or Substack if you'd like. Okay, so who wants to talk about what MAFS actually is? I do.
Wow. It's the bridesmaid, Adam.
Married at First Sight is a reality TV show where relationship experts match two complete strangers who meet for the first time at the altar and then get married. The couple then gets flown out to their sunny honeymoon, and on their return they move in together. And throughout the show, the relationship experts assign the couples tasks to simulate real-world challenges that they might face on the outside of the show in the real world, like ranking the entire cast in order of attractiveness and swapping partners. They attend weekly dinner parties with the other couples, which are always really fine and normal.
Fucking baby, that fucking froze his dummy at the pram.
And the experts observe, but they can't intervene because of Attenborough's law or something. They also have weekly commitment ceremonies, which is a chance for the couple to reflect on their week with the experts' help while everyone else is watching, obviously. The couple individually gets to decide whether they want to stay or leave. And obviously, if one person wants to stay but the other person wants to leave, then the couple has to stay. They have to stay. The most important thing to know about MAFS is that it's a social experiment. MAFS is better than you and your shitty reality TV, bitch. This is science. But Married at First Sight hasn't always been this way. MAFS actually began in Denmark in 2013, so blame Denmark, and was brought to the UK screens in 2015 following the Danish format, which is completely different than what we know now. The first 5 years of MAFS UK included between 2 to 4 couples each season. It had the tone of an intimate documentary. It felt very authentic and sincere. Something that added to this was the fact that these early MAFS marriages were legally binding, unlike later seasons. The early seasons also showed a much larger focus on the matchmaking process, which was carried out by evolutionary anthropologist Anna Mackin, psychotherapist Joe Coker, and psychologist Mark Coulson. The matchmakers' approach was described as science-based, using interviews, personality tests, physical data such as women's hip-to-waist ratio and men's hip-to-shoulder ratio, and DNA. Even at this point, the science behind the matchmaking was slightly contentious, especially when doing so based on genetics. But in later seasons, we see very little about the matchmaking process at all. Once Married at First Sight Australia was aired in the UK in 2020, everything changed. The Australian format was immediately adopted for the next season of MAFS UK, which sent the ratings soaring and was E4's strongest launch ever. There were more couples, including disruptor couples, which is a similar concept to bombshells in Love Island. The season had more episodes with multiple story arcs. The UK marriages became just ceremonies and they weren't legally binding. They brought in a new set of matchmakers, Paul, Mel and Charlene. I'll be coming back to them later. And this is when the weekly dinner parties and commitment ceremonies were introduced as well. MAFS went from a vulnerable, authentic feeling documentary series to a glamorous staged production more similar to shows like Love is Blind. The MAFS empire has since spread across 13 different countries, and the US version was so successful it has multiple spin-off shows: Honeymoon Island, Happily Ever After, Unmatchables, Couples Cam, Last Resort, Second Chances, and Married at Second Sight. And by the way, the US marriages are still real. On MAFS UK, there have been 58 couples matched over the years, but only 3 are still together at the time of me filming this video. Michelle and Owen, Adam and Taya, Zoe and Jenna.
Zoe doesn't seem fazed at all by the fact that I'm vegan.
She's got genetics?
No.
That's a 5% success rate. That's not good. What other service would you use with a 5% success rate? They keep calling it a social experiment, but I think we found the results now. It doesn't work. I need to get this wretched thing out of my hair. Maybe the point of Married at First Sight is for it to not work. If it doesn't work, that means conflict. And if there's conflict, that means views. So that might mean that MAFS actually sets the couples up to fail.
Adam, you will be paired with Amy, and she will move in with you.
My stomach has just naturally dropped. I'm not really a jealous person, but Amy is stunning. Just don't want to go back to square one with feeling really insecure about myself.
Something that I think MAFS wants you to find really appealing about it is this idea that it offers something directly opposed to current dating culture. We kind of see this with interviews and montages at the start of the season. Instead of a talking stage, have an arranged marriage. Instead of wanting a spark, grow your feelings steadily over time. Instead of floating around aimlessly in the dating pool, have a very fixed period of time structured around getting to know someone with formal milestones clearly set out for you. The show also assumes monogamy. Most of the couples are straight, and the show increasingly casts people who adhere to rigid and traditional gender roles. These things feel like they're from another time, a better time maybe, that MAFS is harkening back to. MAFS does capitalise on the dating fatigue of current times and offers this traditional old school feeling of love as a solution. This concept that MAFS is selling is sometimes at odds with other messages we receive during the show. In some ways, it encourages elements of traditional relationships, the arranged marriages, staying when you want to leave, putting in the work, entwined with elements of what we might call modern dating. Things like sleeping in the same bed straight away, genital cupping, showing the women in lingerie and in sex shops. This might be giving the couples mixed messages on how they're supposed to be acting. Should they build a deep bond first or have sex first? Should they be talking about their sex life or should they keep that private? Should they play it cool like modern dating encourages or actually act like husband and wife, since that's what they are? And these mixed messages lead me perfectly on to the next section.
Thanks for sharing all you did. I'm not going anywhere.
Where does it say I'm not leaving?
I'm not going anywhere and I'm not leaving.
It's totally different because you're trying to twist that into me saying that I lied about the ring ceremony.
No, I did. When I said that, you lied. You literally put words in my mouth, Harrison.
That's what you're actually doing.
No, you literally said I'm not going in.
So, back in the day, men and women's roles were really clearly defined. Man earns money, woman does everything else. You could say that throughout history, it was easier for people to understand their roles in society. Yeah, women were disenfranchised, but so what? Swings and roundabouts. One of the reasons women were kept disenfranchised was because their lack of independence actually served a purpose, and that was to enable men's displays of masculinity. When women didn't really have careers and stayed at home more often, it allowed men to be the breadwinner, the provider, to have power, authority, and status. Women's liberation is obviously a net positive for society. Wow, woke YouTubers at it again. But it changed the social organisation of romantic relationships. It became harder to understand what people's roles were. If women can now vote and work and own property, as well as look after children in the house, what do men do? This is something that conservatives pick up on, only their solution is to revert back to traditional gender roles, whereas some people think men could be using this as an opportunity to redefine their roles, just like women had to. And to be fair, the men, they're giving it a go. Sociologists theorise that the reason men are increasingly asserting their masculinity through sex and dominance is an attempt to redefine male identity in a modern world. This sociology book, Why Love Hurts, has helped me a lot with this video, and there's a bit in it that says men transferred to sex and sexuality the control they had formerly held in the household, and sexuality became the realm within which they could express and display their authority and autonomy. Detachment in sexuality came to signal and organise the broader trope of autonomy and control, and thus of masculinity. Relationships between men and women and the economy have always been closely entwined. Marriage used to be absolutely crucial for women's social and economic survival, as during the first 200 years of capitalism, women were restricted to low-paying jobs, if any job at all, and this inflated women's emotional investment into marriage. They needed them more than men because men held the economic power. And at the same time as these shifts in relationships, we've seen the rise of capitalism and how it infiltrates every area of our lives, encouraging us to focus on personal choice and freedom and individualism. Me, me, me. It turns us into chronic consumers, a mindset that has seeped into the way that we date, turning it into a shopping-like experience where we're always trying to find the best deal, always trying to upgrade and optimize, and sometimes feeling entitled to a refund.
Totally not what I wanted. Not good. I normally go in just short, petite, blonde or brunette, like just no attraction. Oh, I'm shattered. I was just like, as soon as I was up there, I was like, it's disappointing.
I don't understand how the process got me to Emma. Don't get it. And it's really frustrating because this is my life you're fucking with.
While some of the women on MAFS might admit that their husband isn't their type, most of the time it is the men making disparaging comments about the women's appearances or size.
I've never really dated girls, I guess, as big as Elizabeth in the past. Maybe I'll get her running in the mornings or something with me, drag her out of bed, I don't know, but she'll be right.
I thought you were going to come down that aisle, yeah, and completely blow me away.
At times, some of the men cannot seem to believe they've been matched with someone they're not physically attracted to, like Casper with Emma, who loves a wine, loves a crisp.
Love a wine, love a crisp.
Casper seemed to have a problem with Emma's weight, even though he was of a similar weight himself. Within the dating market, I think this is a form of dominance men perform over women to strictly police their bodies and feel emboldened to make very critical statements, often leading women to change their appearance or develop insecurities. We see sexual dominance being displayed by Brad Skelley, who describes himself as liking to push boundaries in the bedroom.
I'm no kink shamer, but like the way he's saying it so openly, I feel that it's the biggest sign of disrespect.
Brad and Shona were actually asked to leave the show by the experts because their relationship was so unhealthy. We also see dominance displayed by Jack Dunkley.
Talking to you, Lauren. Shut your mouth. Can you muzzle your woman?
3 of George Roberts' ex-girlfriends reported him to the police for emotional abuse before MAFS, but no charges were made, and all 3 of them also contacted Channel 4 when they realised he was on the show. And in the UK, there are 3 types of criminal background checks, I believe. If the check on George was an enhanced DBS check, these reports made against him would likely pop up. So there is a good chance that Channel 4 might have seen these reports and still chose to cast him. And while his MAFS season was airing, George was arrested on suspicion of coercive control, but again, no charges were made. When Alex Henry was revealed in the lineup for MAFS, a friend of his ex-partner made a statement about him, claiming that he had been abusive. Viewers called for him to be removed from the show, but Channel 4 didn't do this as filming had already finished. Channel 4 also saw emails from the alleged victim where Alex said in a message, "I get flashbacks about what happened between us, the good, but mostly the bad, and it makes me feel sick." Although Channel 4 had vetted Alex and his criminal record was clean, they missed a very red flag, which was that he had previously filmed another dating show for Channel 4, but his episode was never aired due to the same alleged victim reaching out to that show as well. On Channel 4's decision not to cut Alex out of MAFS, the domestic violence charity Women's Aid said, "Sadly, this decision demonstrates the lack of awareness that the MAFS production team still has when it comes to domestic abuse." Before being on MAFS, Adrian Araouzou faced 3 domestic abuse charges: domestic violence, common assault, and resisting police. And neighbours called the police because they could hear his ex-partner screaming from their home at the time. Adrian was taken to court in 2021, but the charges were dropped when his ex-partner said that her injuries were from a seizure. If this doesn't make you side-eye the show's vetting process, I don't know what will. Since 2021, Women's Aid have made 4 separate statements about men's behaviour on Married at First Sight. Frankie Spencer, Brad Skelley, Jack Dunkley, and Alex Henry. Refuge has also made a statement about Alex. The Australian organisation What Were You Wearing have actually called for Channel 9 to apologise. 2024, the year that Adrian was on the show, was one of Australia's worst years in recent memory for violence against women. This is the cultural climate in which MAFS is platforming misogyny, or alleged misogyny. In this book, Eva Illouz argues that even though men no longer hold economic power over women, they do still have power, and they have greater capacity to define the terms of relationships. Yes, some of the women on MAFS are awful. Honourable mention to Inez and Whitney.
I'm 6'2". Is that tall enough? Or did you want 6'5"?
Kind of. I'm not like saying you look small, but
We do see some of the women cheating and shouting and being cruel on the show, just like some of the men do, and when the women do it, it's just as hurtful. Most of the time, there are some missing elements in the women's behaviour that are present in the men's behaviour, such as devaluing their partner based on their age, disgust for their partner's appearance and body size, lack of empathy when it comes to ranking attractiveness, wanting to swap partners. This sort of consumer mindset has seeped into relationships from other areas of life, while men have translated their historical economic power into dominance within the dating market. Eva Araouzou says sexual freedom made sexuality a site for the exercise and display of masculinity. For men whose status in the three arenas of work, home, and male sociality had been eroded, it transformed sexuality into status. To be fair, it's not just the men on MAFS that internalised this sort of messaging. Take Lauren, for example. Now, Lauren is a really interesting one because both her and her match Clint are very successful, highly driven business people. So when considering Lauren's career, you might assume she's more progressive, but she's not. She gets the ick when seeing Clint do household jobs like laundry and washing up. Okay, Clint, feminist icon. Lauren believes that she should be doing those things, even though they have equal careers. When high-achieving women like Lauren claim that they want traditional relationships, but still want to be a girl boss, I think it's because they're scared of emasculating their husband. Instead of giving up their financial freedom to preserve his masculinity, they overcompensate by taking care of the house as well as working. There's actually some research to show this too. 45% of British women who are the breadwinners in their relationships still do most of the household tasks, compared to 12.5% of male breadwinners. High-earning women are also more likely to be cheated on and more liable to divorce. So while Clint is a gem, I think this is an example of how men in general still maintain relational power even without the traditional economic power, and that influences how even very successful women behave in relationships. So, in short, Married at First Sight reflects how we date in today's hyper-independent world where men are searching for a new role. MAFS shows how we treat dating as a marketplace through browsing, comparing, and upgrading, as well as showing how men are increasingly displaying masculinity through dominance. In fact, MAFS doesn't just reflect it, it facilitates it and encourages it. It encourages it for the sake of the show to make it more entertaining and profitable. This video is interrupted by me. What if I told you you could join the Thoughtbug Patreon and get perks like having your name in the video credits, bonus videos, and a book club? Well, that would probably just knock your socks off, wouldn't it? It would knock my socks off though. Do you know why? Because I'm a bug. Please join the book club tier so I'm not alone. There are different price points for different budgets, even one for less than a cup of coffee. And if you could help fund this channel, you will have my eternal gratitude as well as all the perks I literally just mentioned. Are you listening? Hello. Join Patreon today with the link below.
I suppose I'm curious what your thoughts were around terrorising the bumhole.
Let me introduce you to the experts, or as my boyfriend once called them, the judges.
Be quiet! That's what is wrong with you. Stop it!
In the UK, the MAFS experts are Paul Brunson, Mel Schilling, and Charlene Douglas. Their role on the show is to match the couples out of the group of people the producers have provided, to watch and react to weekly dinner parties, and to facilitate the commitment ceremonies. Usually these are the only times the experts interact with the couples, so most of the time they're not aware of things that happen outside of these moments, meaning they can often lack context for people's behaviour. Meet Paul Brunson. I've always thought Paul was one of the best experts because he always seems to offer really good advice in the commitment ceremonies, so I was surprised to learn he's the only expert without a degree relating to psychology or relationships in some way. His background is in investment banking, and then in 2009 he launched his own matchmaking agency, which allowed him to progress onto TV and writing his own self-help books. He is a life coach and he's known for his work on Celebs Go Dating, and he's the head of global research at Tinder. Then we have Charlene Douglas, a sex therapy counsellor and relationship coach, and according to her LinkedIn, she's currently studying her second master's degree in psychotherapy. Her website says that she is one of the UK's UK's leading sex therapist, but I'm not sure how you go about measuring that. I'm assuming it's just because she's on Married at First Sight. Finally, there is Mel Schilling, who is an expert on both MAFS UK and Australia. Mel pursued psychology to a postgrad level and then worked for several years as a corporate consulting psychologist. Before pursuing psychology, she was an actor and appeared in an episode of Blue Healers and Neighbours. Mel now has a dating podcast and a self-help book. Both, I believe, were off of the back of her work with MAFS. She describes herself as a dating coach, a relationship expert, a confidence coach and specialist, and a success coach. All roles that are more difficult to define and verify than a psychologist. Mel has a women-only confidence program that's currently under development and an 8-week course called the Date Squad, which is coming soon. There's also a lot of generic talk about being your best self, stepping into your power, stepping into your spotlight. What does it mean? The term relationship expert is an unprotected, hard to define term, which is perhaps why MAFS uses it. That, and it manages to encompass people with relevant qualifications and without. Also, in order to be a practicing psychologist or therapist, you need to keep up with your licensing and insurance and things like that. So if an expert doesn't maintain those things, then they can't practice actual therapy. So the title of expert would be more fitting. In the UK and Australia, coaching isn't regulated at all, which means anyone can call themselves a coach and structure their coaching sessions however they like. This doesn't mean that coaches don't have value or all coaches have nefarious intentions. It just means there's no real governing body keeping an eye on them. You could argue it's a positive thing for a relationship coach to have a psychology degree, underpin the sessions with their clients. You could also argue it might become difficult to find the line between the two and prevent coaching from merging into therapy. Regardless, the experts are not labelled as coaches on the show. So if they're not doing therapy and they're not coaching, then what are they doing? Expertising? The whole design of MAFS relies on the relationship expert's advice, and the show intentionally casts people who want to listen to their advice and value what they have to say. The experts are absolutely the authority on screen, and they're kind of positioned as all-knowing and always right. The cast often appears shocked when someone challenges something an expert has said, and the experts can sometimes seem offended, and that reinforces this idea that they are the authority. If a participant disagrees with an expert's opinion, it can be framed as talking back, almost like a child to a teacher. Don't get me wrong, there are times when the experts absolutely do call out toxic behaviour, and we love to see it. But we as the viewers are definitely encouraged to see it as stepping out of line if a cast member challenges an expert. The experts' perspectives are almost always focused on individual responsibility. I agree that taking responsibility over your own life, both what you want to do with it and any mistakes you've made, is a positive thing that everyone should be doing. But I don't think it's the only thing we should be doing. It very much reminds me of the self-improvement, self-development industry in real life. Therapy and self-help has become increasingly popular since the 90s. We've seen counselling and therapy become very normalised, particularly therapy language like self-care, boundaries and gaslighting. They're all things that have found their way into the mainstream. And while some mental health professionals have an intersectional approach, that is very much seen as radical still. I think it's fair to say that most mental health professionals, and definitely anything mental health related that you see in the mainstream media, is very much focused on you. This links in with the individualistic nature of capitalism we spoke about earlier. It's infiltrated our psyches, encouraging us to always look at ourselves and never the external factors around us or institutions that we exist within. Araouzou says, by interpreting love as a psychological skill to be improved, self-help culture detaches romantic suffering from its embeddedness in social institutions like gender, class and family. This is something that I think we see very clearly on Married at First Sight. Think about all of the deranged tasks that the couples have to do. If someone is upset that their partner slept in the same bed as someone else during the partner swap challenge, it's never the task considered to be the problem, always the people involved. MAFS might find you a relationship, but it's the MAFS environment that drives you apart. I think a good example of this is with Roz and Thomas. Roz struggled all the way through to build a strong bond with Thomas, even getting tearful at times and feeling guilty for her lack of feelings. Roz was encouraged time and time again to self-reflect and to almost justify why her emotional bond with Thomas wasn't growing. The experts even asked her to to consider her attachment style and previous relationships as a reason for her lack of connection. Roz was encouraged to question herself rather than question the environment, the matchmaking process, the producer's interference, or the expert's advice. A final quote from araouzou: "The dominance of the therapeutic discourse has contributed to the idea that emotional pain is best understood and solved through individual introspection, not collective reflection." Instead of considering that the pain you feel in your relationships could be stemming from something like gender norms or consumer culture, or in Roz's case, a failure of the matchmaking process, the self-improvement industry reframes it as your personal shortcoming or deficit, something that you can pay to fix with the right book or the right coach. And listen, I'm an advocate for getting therapy and being an agent of change in your own life, but these things don't address problems with systems we live within. Capitalism traps us by framing things as problems and then selling us a solution, the whole time distracting us from bigger systemic problems.
Eyebrow ring, like it's so disgusting. They're so 90s boy band. They're done.
We can view the progression of reality TV as a product of late-stage capitalism, where people profit from the commodification and maybe exploitation of their own bodies and emotional lives. And Married at First Sight in particular shows us how these neoliberalist beliefs we so often find supporting capitalism, things like self-sufficiency, personal choice, consumer mindsets, a sense of competition, are now embedded into our relationships. MAFS demonstrates the trap of self-improvement, which can encourage us to blame ourselves rather than look at the systems we live within, confuse rules around love, gender and power, leading men to display masculinity through dominance, turning yourself into a commodity for the dating market that's been increasingly gamified or for the sake of personal branding. MAFS shows us very clearly that if a relationship isn't working, it's a personal failure and nothing to do with external pressures. And with every season of MAFS, it seems to be getting worse. Of course, this is a reflection of the times that we live within, but also the studio's falling revenue may be contributing too. CPL is the UK production company behind Married at First Sight, and they are owned by 7-1 Studios, whose UK production turnover fell from £30.6 million to £18.5 million in 2023. Maybe this fall puts pressure on CPL to increase the dramatics of MAFS to improve the ratings. So, where does that leave the rest of us? If we're finding ourselves chronically dissatisfied with our relationships, we might have to start looking at the systems around us as well as ourselves. We might have to stop viewing ourselves as a personal project, always needing to be optimized and upgraded, and using our relationships as proof of self-development. It's okay to take a break from self-improvement. We don't always have to have a mission. We don't always have to be busy. We might have to stop treating people that we date like they're a product in a shop that we're comparing and might later exchange. And equally, stop marketing ourselves as if we're a brand. We might need to reimagine what masculinity means in today's world without seeing vulnerability as weakness. And we might need to think about reclaiming love as something we do collectively in groups and communities rather than an individual private project. Thank you all so much for watching. My Patreon, Instagram and Substack are all linked down below. And please come along to my first Patreon book club. We are first reading The Vegetarian by Han Kang, and I'll be announcing the next few months' books soon. Okay, bye. Bye. What an ally. Oof, we made it, guys. We made it to the end of this section.